Every so often, there's a moment that feels like it captures everyone at once. For days, weeks, even months before something comes out, you're hearing buzz about it, you're aware that something big is about to happen, and you might be in the thick of it, following every detail and praying it can turn out exactly how you're hoping, or you might be watching from the outside with a raised eyebrow, waiting to see how this all pans out. The first time I remember feeling like this was with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. I was so excited for that movie, little 11-year-old me dressed up like Voldemort. By which I mean I put a bunch of powder on my face and grabbed a crooked little stick from a park, and went to watch the movie with my dad and my sister on opening night, and it was easily the best movie experience of my entire childhood. I looked like this when I was 11, so as you could probably tell, I didn't have friends. I spent a lot of my free time before this movie came out rereading the books and doing sorting quizzes and watching Potter Puppet Pals and paint songs. I built this thing up so much in my head, which is usually a recipe for disaster, but guess what? It wound up being everything I wanted. Surprisingly funny, epic, faithful, emotional, and fulfilling, and the best part was that the audience in the theater was so into it. It felt incredible to be part of that moment of pure joy. As I got older, I got more into following and discussing movies and shows, and especially games. It's something that I still like doing to this day, but with that growing engagement with those communities came a bit of an annoying side effect. A lack of independent thought and the inability to escape negativity. Before anything new that I'm excited for now, I've already seen at least 10,000 people blindly praise it and 5,000 people express concern over it. I've seen people talk about what will make or break this product. I've seen them dissect trailers and share previews and compare it to other media, and by the time I'm reading or watching or playing the thing, I can't even see it as its own individual product anymore. Sometimes I'll watch movies and be wondering how other people are gonna react to the stuff that I'm seeing instead of processing my own feelings on it, and even if I am processing it myself, I start thinking about how I gotta remember to bring it up when my brother or friends ask me about it later, or how I'm gonna talk about it if I make a video or post. And then I go home and I see what people are saying online, all the endless praise or hot takes or solemnly disappointed fans expressing their feelings on it all, and it starts feeling like the actual movie is the least important part of the movie. Maybe that's why I love 1917 as much as I do. I saw its trailer for the first time right before another movie, and I told my brother, we should watch that, it looks good. 2 days later, we're back in the theater, haven't seen a thing about it online, and it absolutely floors me. There were points where I forgot I was in a theater, I just felt like I was part of the movie. I wish I was one of those people who could learn to ignore trailers and previews for stuff that I was already sold on. I think I'd enjoy things so much more if I went in as blind as possible, but I also know I have no self-control. I will always give in to the noise. Sometimes what you're witnessing is so loud and powerful though that it drowns out the noise altogether, and it can help you remember why you fell in love with this stuff in the first place. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows might have been the best movie experience of my childhood, but it wasn't the best movie experience of my life, because when I was 19, I watched Avengers Endgame with my friends, and I don't know if anything can live up to that. I was standing in my seat, I was hitting my friends, I was making sounds that I didn't even think were possible to make from a human face. I never do this. I'm the guy who only eats popcorn at the loudest parts of the movie so I don't distract people. This thing had me acting up. People were clapping and cheering, and it wasn't even annoying. That whole room was just pure happiness, and after we walked out, after a little bit of freaking out in full falsetto, one of my friends asked, better or worse than Infinity War? And I just looked at him for a second and said, bro, who cares? Did you see the movie I just saw? What's crazy to me is that people are actually generally critical of Endgame nowadays. I hear a lot about how it's not even a real movie, it's just fan service. Across the board, people want to say Infinity War was better, and I agree. It's not actually the best movie if you really want to break it down, but it was a moment in time, and I think it knew that and played into it perfectly. When it released, it felt like most people were too deliriously happy for those critical, measured, or even negative takes to hit their radar. I've met people who don't like this movie even when it first released, but for the people who did like it, there was so much explosive excitement that you could just sit in it and enjoy it and be happy, which is half the reason we watch this stuff to begin with. My endgame moment in gaming has absolutely gotta be Elden Ring. I've said it before, but the anticipation and the discussion before its release, all the memes, the hype around the first gameplay trailer, the pot fan art, the Whopper watch, waiting for Elden Ring was an event in and of itself, and when it came out to that Metacritic score and all those videos and all the discussion online, oh my god, I would sit down and play it for 8 hours and then watch my brother play it for the next 8 hours and then watch people online play it for 7 hours and then sleep for like an hour and then wake up and do it again. Dude, I didn't even know it had a user score of 7 till like a month later. I've never been that oblivious to criticism of my favorite things before. Since then, I have liked talking about the good and bad of Elden Ring. There's a lot of discussion to be had around it. Hell, I had complaints while I was playing it, but I'm so glad I got to be part of its big shining moment as a fan, enjoy it purely without distraction, and I look back so positively on its release. It doesn't always take a big, sweeping, global phenomenon to create these watershed moments in our lives, though. Uncharted 4 was a big game that a lot of people were excited for, but it wasn't like Elden Ring, Endgame, Harry Potter levels of hype. And when it was coming out, I wasn't personally nearly as into keeping up with gaming news or watching gaming channels as I am now, so I never felt at the time that the world was holding its breath waiting for this to release. But you know who was holding their breath for it? My family. My siblings and I love Uncharted. I think the Uncharted games and Until Dawn are the only games my sisters played front to back, and we also love getting together for cinematic games in general. I play and they watch. We did that for The Last of Us, for example. In retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have shown this to a 7-year-old. But I guess that was our idea of quality family time. When Uncharted 4 came out, I made sure I went out early to buy it at the EB Games near my house. My parents were asleep, so I walked 12 miles uphill both ways to grab a copy. I said, "One Uncharted, please." The guy said he needed ID. I was 16, looked about 6. I gave him my ID, he convinced me to buy an EB Games Platinum card, which has never come in handy, but I've been renewing it for 7 years, and then I took my copy of Uncharted 4 home, put it into my PS4, called my siblings down, and we shot through its 15-hour campaign in 1 day. I never got up from the couch once. My mom made food and I would eat it during the cutscenes. It wasn't hard. There are a lot of cutscenes in that game. I didn't need to watch hundreds of videos or join online forums for Uncharted to feel like an event was happening in front of me. I could still tell I was in the middle of a moment. And a personal moment at that, one that doesn't feel like it connects me to the world, it connects me with my family. And without that aspect, maybe my thoughts on the game would have been different. Uncharted 4 is my favorite game ever, period. And I almost don't want another game to take that spot because I associate so much more with it than just the game itself. I mean, even its multiplayer, which most people forget even exists. I remember when I was playing it, I was starting to talk to somebody who would soon become very, very important to me. And so while I was playing the multiplayer, I would hear a notification sound, ask my brother to take over in the match and respond to that person, and then swap back and play for a bit until I heard another notification sound and hopped off again. And that time in my life was so exciting for me that I think I associate those feelings with the game subconsciously. The day Elden Ring came out, I received my first rejection from grad school, and I was so upset, but I'd been waiting for the game for so long and I was having so much fun with it that it felt like a way to still be happy even when I should have been sad. I'm sure I would still like Uncharted 4 if I played it a year after release by myself. I'm sure I'd like Endgame and Harry Potter and Elden Ring a lot, no matter when I got around to them, but not in the same way I do now. Sometimes you just have to be there. You have to be in the middle of a live experience for it to truly hit you, and if you miss the bus, you just kinda miss it. I've always wondered how I'd feel about Skyrim if I played it when it first came out, if I'd be swept up in the hype and that'd push me through my early hesitancy with RPGs, but here I am having played about an hour 5 years ago and always telling myself I'd go back even though I never have. It does feel weird being on the outside of a moment. I was 13 when GTA 5 came out and my parents had a very strict policy about adult content. The gist of it was this: violence? We don't care about violence. Here's a man dying a gruesome death at the hands of a dinosaur. What's that? You're 5 years old? Doesn't matter. This definitely won't induce any recurring dinosaur-themed nightmares into your late teens. My dad walked by once when that Last of Us animation played in front of my, again, 7-year-old brother, and he laughed and walked away. This is a pro-violence household, but if a character so much as mentions a titty, God is my witness, I will do this to you. My mom walked out of Turning Red because she said it was too inappropriate for us. I was 22 years old. So yeah, I wasn't allowed to play GTA 5, and it was driving me insane. Every day I'd be at school and everyone would be talking about the stuff they did last night in Los Santos. It was all kind of taboo too. A lot of people were talking about how they have to hide it from their parents, and I was like, oh, maybe I should do that, but my parents didn't want to give me their card for the PS store, and I knew my EB Games guy was a snitch. Dude had already sent me an express ass whooping when he told my mom Infamous 2 had sexual themes the year before. So I just had to sit there and listen to my friends be all excited about this game and plan heists, and I would be like, you guys want to come over and play Hasbro's Family Game Night? The day it released, I was actually at a family friend's house, and a few of the kids were talking about how crazy the pre-order numbers were, and some middle-aged brown dude came up to us and was like, oh, Grand Theft Auto? I've heard many people are taking sick days from work to play this game. It's very big news. And I was like, Uncle G, didn't you get off a flight from Pakistan last night? You haven't even used a toilet that isn't part of the ground yet. How do you know more about GTA than I do? To this day, it sucks to be caught on the outside. Even if it's your choice, it's hard not to be swept up in the excitement. Tears of the Kingdom just came out, and the way people are talking about it is maddening. Everyone is saying how advanced and free it is, but the thing is, I had a hard time getting into Breath of the Wild, so I don't know if I want to spend 80 Canadian buckaroo-skis on it just to lose interest in the first 5 hours. Then again, maybe I'll have a newfound appreciation for this one, because my tastes have changed quite a bit in the last 5 years, and this is the best chance I've got to buy it, because if I keep pushing it back further, the excitement's gonna wear off, but it's Nintendo, so the price tag won't. And damn it, I want to be a part of things. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Screw it, you convinced me. I'm buying Zelda. This might have been a horrible mistake. I love small random moments in gaming where something blows up out of nowhere, even if it's just for a while. Fall Guys definitely peaked early, but that peak was cool. Everyone was digging Fall Guys for a little bit, and Among Us was unironically a cultural phenomenon. Everybody could pick it up. I was on voice chat with friends of friends of friends, calling people out by their character's color because I couldn't remember half their names. They thought I was really annoying. That's besides the point. All of a sudden, these YouTubers had a way to collab even if they weren't known for gaming. It was helping people socialize at a time when we couldn't see each other. It single-handedly ruined the word among. I mean, what a crazy point in time. Pokemon Go, same thing. That one didn't even just ruin a word, it ruined an entire presidential campaign. None of these games seem all that impressive if you try and break them down, but they turn into these huge shared experiences that we can all point to. And it's a little cheesy maybe, but that's kind of a unifying thing. For a few months we were all actually physically exercising. For another few months we were all quarantined and losing our minds, but we got on a big group call with our friends every so often, accused each other of lying for 3 hours, and loved it. The social aspect of entertainment is something that's not always talked about enough, but it's important and people find it in different ways. I love watching shows that I know my friends have watched so I can talk to them about it, and if they haven't watched it, I recommend it to them. People might watch reality TV because it feels like you're part of a social experience. Networks have shied away from the streaming model of a few years ago when every episode in a season would drop all at once, and slowly move back to weekly releases because it promotes conversation and theorizing and anticipation. In gaming, most people socialize through multiplayer games, either through voice chatting with strangers or their friends, or not even talking at all, but experiencing silent actions from other real players interacting with the same world. Like Let Me Solo Her from Elden Ring, a guy who helped thousands of players beat the game's hardest boss, became a mythical figure in the community, and got an actual sword sent to him from the game's publishers Bandai Namco for his efforts, and he did it all with his only form of communication being the name on top of his head. It's a cool story to retell, but it doesn't compare to seeing his quest unfold in real time and feeling proud of this random stranger. And I realized a while ago that even though I usually stick to single player experiences, that's the part of gaming I want to preserve for myself as long as possible. These moments of connection when everyone's playing or talking about the same thing. That's why I like showcases too, because everyone's excited and then we see all these games come out and we're like, whoa, and the chat's like, where's Silksong? I love connecting with people through the things I enjoy, and that's a big reason why I make these videos. None of my friends play games the way I do. Aside from my brother, I can't really talk to anyone about Cuphead the same way I saw people talking about GTA 5 all those years ago, so I decided to throw my thoughts into the void and see if anyone would pick them up. Releasing a video feels like I'm creating my own little moment that people can share in, and I still respond to most comments in the first day or two. I think that's why I've kept the channel going even when I feel disappointed at how slow it's moving sometimes. I mean, think about this video. I've given you zero useful information. You've learned absolutely nothing that you can apply anywhere else. I am discussing a broad, not necessarily original topic and giving you personal anecdotes. The most thought-provoking thing about this video is that maybe you'll think about what big moments in gaming you remember, but it's my way of being present and engaged with the things I love. I started this whole thing off talking about how it can be a little tiring keeping up with the discourse and the negativity around everything, and how having a reviewer's mentality can sometimes ruin experiences for me. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the bad moments in gaming, like the release of The Last of Us 2 or Cyberpunk, which created devastating and toxic environments. It's a dangerous game to give into hype. In fact, most people advise you not to get sucked into it. But I think you still need to find ways to preserve that excitement, otherwise you lose out on the good moments. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be games, movies, sports, art, the things you consume, the things you create. I've seen so many people's passions get stomped out for one reason or another as they get burnt out on what used to make them happy, and I can only hope that those people can find these moments that remind them of why those passions were so important to them in the first place. And years later, if somebody outside that moment asked them why that particular thing at that particular time was so impactful for them, the best explanation they can give is, you had to be there.